point out a few people from the county. Ed Gilliland is Human Resources. Michelle Scaff, Emergency Management. Dennis Butler, Tax Analyst. PJ Jennings, clear in the back. County Attorney, who did I miss?
Mark.
Mark Nara coming in the door. They're already asking me if you were coming.
I got a chair for you right here if you want.
All right, I think we want to start with a resolution. My father's name was Elvis with an A, and I thought Presley spelled it wrong for many years. Here's another one, Alvis Wessling. A lifelong bachelor and farmer in the Danbury area, died unexpectedly Friday, March 25th, 2005, at the age of 76. Although never married or had any children of his own, Alvis had a passion for young people activities. He attended many youth activities and ball games in the area. Alvis had a great love for the Iowa High School 6-on-6 girls basketball. Anybody remember that? He attended nearly 100% of all scheduled basketball games and hardly ever missed the Iowa Girls State Basketball Tournament in Des Moines. He always ordered at least 2 tickets, one for Alvis and one for his coat. Alvis was a member of the Danbury Community Club for 60 years, as a 6-year member of the Danbury Legion. Prior to his death, his love for kids and his commitment to the community, Alvis saw to it that several programs would be funded for many years. Today, St. Mary's Parish, Danbury Catholic School, Danbury Community Club, Danbury Recreation Center, Danbury Little League, and the Danbury Kids Program all reap the benefits from his generosity. On November 13, 2007, the Danbury City Council gave the Danbury Community Club approval to rename the Danbury City Park the Alvis Wessling Memorial Park and erect a memorial at the park entrance in his memory. In September of 2010, during the Corn Day celebration, a dedication ceremony was held proclaiming Danbury City Park as the Alvis Wessling Memorial Park. Today, the Alvis Wessling Memorial Park houses 2 ballparks for the youth of the area and other sporting events. For those of you, I just learned this recently, Alvis donated some land, and the proceeds from it keep all of those organizations going to the city of Danbury. What a guy. Somebody like to read this? Big pick.
This is a resolution thanking and commending Alvis Wessling for his service to Danbury and Woodbury County. It reads, whereas Alvis Wessling has demonstrated to be an outstanding citizen of Woodbury County by giving back to the community of Danbury, and whereas Alvis Wessling has increased the pride and quality of life in the community of Danbury, and whereas we posthumously honor Alvis Wessling for all of his contributions, and whereas Alvis Wessling provided funding for many years to many community programs and institutions. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Woodbury County, Iowa, that the undersigned members of the board, and all 5 of us signed it, thank and commend Alvis Wessling for his years of service to Woodbury County, and be it further resolved that it is the wish of all those signing below that the future hold only the best for the residents of Danbury in his memory. Be it so resolved.
How we do these is we have the town talk about all the good things that are going on, and the county will have a few words, and then we open it up for questions. And that's usually the part that takes the most time, so we'll try to be brief. So you're on.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to introduce our council. Next to me is Mike Berry, been on for 14 years. Mal Fromm, retiring this year. December will be his last meeting. He's been on for 8. Mike Booth, I believe Mike's been on for 12. Sherry Simmons is next to her, and she's been on about a total of 8, I believe, before and now. Beside her is our city clerk, Brooke Captain. Dave Colbert has been on about 14 years, and Kevin Frank is our new council-elect. So he'll be starting in January. One thing I wanted to, yesterday when I thought about what we were doing for Elvis, I was trying to think of other people that maybe we could have recognized. And I thought about a group that started out several years ago. We had Ragby come down through here, how many years ago, Chops? 30, 40, late 80s, early 90s. Anyway, we had about 10, 15,000 people in this town. And we weren't a stopover, we were a pass-through. They were going to like Lakeview. So we were, community thinking of things to do and entertain them. Well, a group of ladies got together and they dressed up as nuns. And they become the nuns on the run. And those gals put on a show that day, and they were so well liked that Ragby kept inviting them to come back every year after year. Well, they did it for 20 years. And they traveled over God knows how many miles. Over those 20 years, they raised $100,000, never charging a fee. The only thing they charged was their mileage. And about 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, they disbanded. That they give money to the fire department, they give money to the ambulance, they give scholarships. They did a great deal. So if we ever do another one, that's probably who's going to get the award.
I just tried to get her to start it up again.
We do have 3 of the nuns, I think. Tootie, Pat, is there any other ones? Linda.
Betty.
Betty's back there. I'd like you gals to stand up and give you a big hand. Okay, I'm going to keep this very brief. What I want to talk about is what we have in Danbury. I think for a small town, we have done quite well. Back in the 80s and the farm prices and everything else, I don't think we lost a business. And since that time, we've probably gained a few business. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to list the business that we have active in this town. And I'm going to start out with Berry Motor, who is a Ford dealership who just celebrated their 100 years in business in 2011. And they had a big celebration, and they're probably the oldest business that we have in town. And Berry Motor is owned by Mike and Jean and Brian Berry. We also have a grocery store, Colbert's Market, which is a second generation, owned by Dave and Linda Colbert. And I've been searching the internet for youth pills, because I don't want Linda and Dave to get any older than what they are. They do a great job, and they're the backbone of the community. We have 2 banks. We have First State Bank and Valley Bank and Trust. We have 2 fertilizer businesses, Crop Production Services based out of Calgary, Canada, and Cage Feed and Grain based out of Danbury, Missouri. We have a grain elevator owned by Cage Feed and Grain out of Danbury. We have a Danbury convenience store, community owned by 70 shareholders. Back in 2004, I believe, was when we started that. 70 people threw in money. I think we raised $245,000. Borrowed a little bit more to get going, but never had to borrow a dime for operating, so it's been really successful. We have 2 beauty salons, Janet's and Carmen Martin. Schrank's Bar and Grill, owned by Terry and Jan Schrank. We have Weldy Vault, a second generation burial vault business owned by Tim and Robin Weldy. Weldy Walk and Gravel, owned by Tim Weldy. We've got Sexton Oil, the second generation gas and oil business owned by Jay and Carrie Sexton. Got Rip Computers, an employee-owned Apple franchise computer business. They not only sell computers, but they provide a lot of tech support to local businesses and schools. Got Triber Storage, owned by Tim and Joanne. Got Danbury Boutique, owned by Austin and Steph Patine. Lansing Repair and Hardware, owned by Ron and Dean Lansing. Then we have Lansing Tree Service, owned by the same two people. Got Ray Weimer Construction, owned by Ray Weimer. Mike Weber Trucking, owned by Mike. Treasures and More, that's a second-hand store owned by Benita Ewell. Joe Heidenreich, an attorney, offices out of Danbury 1 day a week. We got Scott Simmons Construction, owned by Scott and Sherry Simmons. We have a Dana Apartments, and that is owned by the city of Danbury. And then we have two complexes at ABC Apartments. We have Twitchell Electric, a second-generation electrical and heating cooling business owned by Jim Twitchell. Boyson Electric, owned by Ken Boyson. Ken Kruger Cabinetry, owned by Ken Kruger. We have a daycare facility owned by Casey Prell. We also have a post office, which was established in 1877. And we also got a library. I don't know where to put that, but somewhere. Oh, here it is. We've got two churches. We've got Catholic Church, St. Mary's Catholic Church. We've got Danbury Methodist Church. We've got Danbury Catholic School, which is pre-K through 6. We've got Cord Memorial Library. We also still have a weekly newspaper edited by Lynn and Mike Booth. We still have our own Danbury ambulance. Danbury Fire Department. We still have Danbury Legion, Post 336, which conducts Memorial Day services and military funerals. We got a Danbury Rec Center. This was a Danbury public school in Maple Valley at one time, and they were going to destroy it, and there's some citizens wanted to keep it, and they got the job done. Right now, we still have, on the first floor is it's an exercise and a gymnasium. Second floor is the next to new, and then on the third floor, we have an archery ring. Then we got Dana Hall, which we're sitting in right now. Danbury, that's our Danbury Community Center, and that's operated by the Danbury Legion. And we do a lot of weddings and stuff and that. Then we got the Danbury Community Club. We've got Danbury Archery. Then the Danbury Community Club meets monthly, September to May. Community Club sponsors Corn Day, which is every September. They sponsor the Danbury Easter egg hunt in April, or Easter time, and that is funded by the kids program. That money was left by Elvis. We have Santa Claus Days. That's also the kids program. The community club also pays for all the flowers for the pots that we have on Main Street. And their new project right now is we're trying to put new entrance signs on both ends of town. We're in the process of that. Just for a little information, Danbury got its name from Daniel Thomas, who is the founder of the city and the county where it's located. In 1880, there were 69 people that lived in Danbury. And in 1940, there was 728. And today we have 348. So that's our little town.
Any new houses?
We have one new house that went up about 2 years ago in an area that we rezoned for commercial, for residential.
So you're ready for more?
We're ready for a lot more. We have a lot of empty lots that is available for housing, and that's in the last 3 months we've had 5 people call that want to move to Danbury. No place to go. So we do have a need. We do have a need for housing. You know, I don't know if it's duplexes or what we do, but I think that's something the town has to look at. We hate telling people that we don't have anything.
Yep.
We had a saying back in Corn Days era that Danbury had lots to offer, and we have lots to offer.
You do. You have good nucleus.
Could you speak more to the Corn Days annual, as far as an economic impact to Danbury and surrounding?
Well, Corn Days, we have a parade. Starts out with a parade, and then there's all kinds of kids' activities. And this year they had a beanbag tournament. They had a softball tournament. They had DJs on Main Street, and then they had kind of a dance that night. The impact You know, I don't know if we've ever figured up dollars and cents, but it does bring a lot of people in. It's not like it used to be. I mean, the Corn Day years and years ago, I mean, this thing, it brought in a lot of people. I mean, it was packed, but it just seemed like parades and stuff have kind of died out a little bit, but we still get, you know, we probably still have an hour parade. And, so with the softball tournament, that brings in about 8 teams. You know, I don't know how many beanbag teams we had this year, but we had a lot.
30.
I want to go back there. 30. How many? 30? 30. So,
That's good.
I mean, it's a fun day. I mean, it's, I think it's always used to be the last Saturday in September. I think we moved it up. Last year was the 19th and 20th of September. Usually right before people get to the fields. You know, years ago we had hand-picking contest and variety show. I mean, we used to pack the gym on Friday night and Saturday. 2 nights, 2 shows, 2
Yeah, we
nights.
did 2 shows.
Yeah, fun time. And that was just local talent. It was fun.
Well, I come through here occasionally, and Strengths is never short for business.
They do a good job.
They do a real good job.
They're probably one of the best little bars in Northwest Iowa.
Yep.
Friday nights are packed, Saturday nights. They just do a good job. So, well, that's our little town.
All right, well, it's a great time to be in Woodbury County. We've got over $2 billion in additional business that's happened within the past 2 years, CF Industries and AGP Processing. It's phenomenal what's happening in the Port Neal area. If you drive through going north on Interstate 29 at 6:30 in the morning, it looks like a lava flow that goes clear into Sioux City and ends up out in Port Neal. One car right after the other. It's incredible. We have about 4,400 people working out there right now, which is the second largest town in the county. Workers. Everybody needs workers everywhere. There are signs on everything. The fast food restaurants, all of the businesses, and that I think is true out here probably too. Trades are very important. Welding is, they pay them a lot of money. It's very good. We have tipped that area, so there will be some tip funding that will come through. We've also talked about property tax relief, using some of that. Anybody think that's a good idea? In the development agreements, we will not see any of that money for 5 to 7 years. It will start trickling in 2019. I believe at about 60,000, then it graduates, and JGP doesn't happen for 6 years, and that's partial, and then the 7th year they're on full. So the county won't see that money for quite a long time. We have, or will be borrowing right around $3 million to do the work for infrastructure out there for CF and AGP, and a little bit for the city of Sergeant Bluff. So we're kind of at the point where we are beyond our means at this point. But I think what we're doing at this point is trying to figure out what's going to happen when that does become reality. So that's why we're out here. A week ago Monday night, we met with all the mayors in the county to talk about what their needs are. And we're trying to get a feel for where the county folks want to go. So that's why we're here. What we talked about last Monday night, we are suggesting that the county pay for comprehensive plans for each town. And a comprehensive plan basically means you get citizens together with the city council and anyone else, the clerk, you gotta have the clerk. Clerks run the town. Don't tell them that, though. And what you do is talk about what you want to look like in 5 to 10 years. Now, that's very important. Do you want to grow? Do you want to expand? Do you want to move into ground outside of your city proper? What is it you need housing? All these things go into a comprehensive plan. Those things are the basis for applying for grants. Because the first thing that people that are awarding grants are going to say is, what are you going to do? Where are you going? So it's very simple. We kind of stumbled across this. I'd heard about this, but I was in Cushing a couple months ago and sitting with the mayor and the clerk, and I said, do you have a comprehensive plan? And Gary said, oh, I don't. Somewhere. Clerk got up, went in the safe and found it. Pulled it out. It was done in 1970, and the county paid for 11 towns to develop comprehensive plans. So it's been a few years, and I believe you were on that list. That's one thing we think the towns should consider. The second, you have a community club. We're suggesting you maybe have a community development committee, which is a nonprofit. You incorporate into a nonprofit. You can take money as a nonprofit, and the person that gives it to you can write it off their tax. It's the same thing as your community club, with the exception that it has the powers of a nonprofit. It's just a good idea. They can take money, they can spend money. Sergeant Bluff has a very active one. They've purchased ground and sold ground to businesses. If you try to run that through the council, it'll take forever. They can do it very simply. The third thing that was talked about, John Winkle is the mayor of Sergeant Bluff, and he and Chuck Long ran Long Lines, and they retired and sold out. But he was working on a concept he called cottage industries. And this is something a rural town might want to think about. If you have folks that are living here and not working, he's proposing you put together some people, and he didn't say how many, 2 to 10 or whatever, and go to work for something like what used to be called Stream in Sergeant Bluff, or any other calling group. And you can do it at home. Make money. It's not a bad idea, one to consider. The other thing that we talked about is asking the mayors and the clerks, because we know who will do it, fill out a survey about your needs, your challenges, your high points, to get some kind of a consensus of what you would like to see happening in Woodbury County and what we might be able to help you with. It's going to be a lot of information, but then we will have the mayors come back together with the clerks and talk about what all that means when we put it all into one document. That's kind of where we're headed. Plus, we need to know what you want to know. We always bring our county engineer along. But if you have any questions, it's a great time to be in Woodbury County, and we need to strike while the iron's hot. Questions? It always takes a while to warm up. You have something? Anybody?
One of the things I wanted to mention is our economic development director he's not able to be here tonight. I think he has a school board meeting, but he is willing to also act as a resource and someone who can help you if you are interested in starting a CDC. He knows all the articles of incorporation, the protections of liability protection, cost savings to the city council, as far as leveraging the human resources out in your city. So that's something that he's certainly willing to do, and we'd like to see him act as a resource in doing. Also, Lindsay Buchheit is an attorney from Sergeant Bluff, and she sits as the chair, or the secretary rather, of their CDC, and I'm not promising her services for free, but I know she's been a willing resource for other rural communities and how to start and how to set some goals, because that's something that's very, very powerful that can be leveraged. So just wanted to mention that.
Well, Jared, our Danbury Community Club's already a 501c,
Okay.
Good,
so that gives us a nonprofit status already, right?
yes.
So basically, for us to take another step into that development probably wouldn't take a whole lot to do.
Right.
You
You already
might be
have a
there.
leg up.
We might be there, but I'm thinking about stopping and talking to Lindsay someday. She's very, very sharp. I mean, she's pretty up on everything. So I just thought I'd stop and just tell her where we're at and just how much further we have to go to get to that. Because we have been talking about this for about 6 years, about trying to become some type of a Danbury betterment community or a corporation or whatever, because for a simple fact that people want to leave us money, we gotta have a place for them to leave. And that's one of the concerns about, I read in an economic thing the other day, that a lot of times these farms, the dads, the moms work all their lives, they die, the kids get it, and they sell it, and the money goes way out of the state. So, you know, if you've got towns that have these corporations, maybe mom and dad would leave a little bit to the city or something before it all leaves. So we're very interested in trying to do that. I just want to mention, there is water up here, there's coffee. So if anybody wants water, just grab it.
Strengths when we're done.
One guy can't eat anymore for sure.
Questions? You're all just happy as can be with Woodbury County services? Your taxes are so low you don't have any complaints?
You know, one of the things I'd say, Mark, is, you know, the sheriff started that program with the
2080 agreement.
2080.
2080 agreement, and as a councilman, I think most of the councilmen being agreeable with you, it's worked pretty good for us. I don't know if it's paying out very well for the county, but we get a report every month on the number of hours that they're in the community. What day they were in 2 hours, this day they were an hour and a half. So far, we haven't had to pay any time because we haven't had any problems that have been related to our
Ordinances.
or to our ordinances. Everything's been a call to 911, and it's been domestic violence or something like that, but we haven't had any ordinance complaints. It seems to be working pretty good for us. I think the rest of the council will all agree with that. It's a pretty good program.
Yeah, there's a lot more presence in town too. Sometimes they're just doing their paperwork here, but just having a car parked, you know, over by the C-store or wherever they park to do their bookwork, just the presence, they're definitely around more than they used to.
Like I told you, we don't want them too much. Have it too much.
He's worried about you.
Worry about himself too.
Mark, I have a question. Several years ago, and I think our ambulance probably took advantage of this. I think the county had a program where an ambulance, if they wanted to buy a new ambulance, that they could apply to the county to do that. Is that still, did that go out with that loan deal, or is that still?
You want to speak to that? Michelle?
I'm not aware of any method of buying an ambulance through the county. I think Gary Brown would probably have to speak to that. He's still running the emergency services out at Pine Hill. I'd be willing to look into some grants and stuff. Are you in the need of a new ambulance?
Well, our ambulance crew is in the process. They've done some fundraising. I don't know where we're at on it, but I think they were getting, didn't Lynn sometime back, we did, our other ambulance, didn't we get funds from the city or from?
I think that's still there.
Our last two ambulances we have, it's a very, very low or zero interest loan. And we have a 2003 ambulance. and we are looking for a new one, and I think we're short 20 to 30,000 to get that ambulance.
Okay, well, I'll definitely put the feelers out and see what I can find and get back to you on it.
Yeah, the only grants we have found, you have to be associated with the city, which we are not, or the fire department, which we are not. So we're kind of in that bad spot there, but
I do think there's a revolving ambulance,
Yes.
so I'm gonna have Larry talk about it, because he knows more than I do, but I know there's a low-interest revolving loan that was set many, many years ago.
yeah, because we've gotten it, but we were told, or you got the impression or something, well, somebody gave me an article that said that the loan program was going away.
Not
That's
Not
not
that
for
one.
the, okay, then we're good.
Gary Brown controls that, and county put quite a bit of money into that program years back, and people would borrow money against it, and then as they paid back, it went back in so they could loan it out again.
There is about 179,000 in there. It's available, but like Mark says, Gary's the one. So there is money that's still there.
Okay, good.
So you might want, Lynn, you might want to see about talking to them.
Do you have enough people to run your ambulance and your,
We are very fortunate. We have 12 EMTs, and all 12 are on the schedule. We do a schedule, and all of us take at least a weekend. Some of us take many shifts during the week, but during the day, which is always a crunch for all the communities, we have between 1 and 4 EMTs in town. But we only have one driver. He's works at Western Iowa Co-op, and he's a farmer, so come planting time, come harvest time, we always pray that it doesn't go off and when there's just one EMT around. We've been very fortunate, which is good because we are now helping Mapleton a lot. So they are really hurting right now, and we've had many calls there. But also, if EOC was not there, we would have some issues too. Because they are usually our second crew, many times they're our second crew member, our second EMT.
fire department keeping up?
Fire department's doing real well. I don't know, we got.
I have one issue for the fire department. Battle Creek, Ida County, we've been wanting to get a mutual aid agreement with us, between Battle Creek and Danbury. And I've tried to talk to the dispatch center. In Ida County, it's not an issue, it's just a matter of getting everything settled in. But every time I've called up the Woodbury County dispatch, I've been told they can't do it. And I can't see why if Ida County is ready to flip the switch, why Woodbury County can't. I've been told it's too hard, and just, they told me to just tell my guys to call for help when they get to the truck. Well, that doesn't make sense. They need it as soon as we get dispatched. It's just for structure fires, is what it would be. And they've been telling me that they can't do it. So I just like, if you can give me another person to talk to, I'd be willing to do it. So,
Have you talked to Gary Brown?
no, I've talked to the guy in charge in the dispatch center. I can't think of his name right
I
now.
would recommend talking to Wendy Hess, she's
Wendy
the
Hess.
communications supervisor. And then above her is Glenn Selby. Glenn does a lot of the towers and fiber optics and a lot of the technical stuff behind the radios.
Okay.
And Wendy Hess would be in charge of communications in general. We haven't spoken with her yet.
Okay.
279-6960. That's gonna be the general dispatch, but I have to ask for her office.
Michelle,
Okay.
can you get his name and help me work through that?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you're gonna have a lot of business soon. All right, I'll start it. How are the roads?
I thought there'd be more farmers here.
Well, I guess one issue, we've talked about as a council, was back several years ago, the state of Iowa did the funding for farm to market roads, and towns of a certain size, all the money went to the county. And Woodbury County has been real good about, funneling that back to us. But in the process, to keep our budget where we could have enough money to keep up our streets, we have this patch coming in from the Odo, on the Odo Blacktop, I think it was called, or the Danbury Blacktop, and that comes into town, and it's got like a big culvert on it, and things that, you know, if it was ever having to be redone, I don't see how Danbury could ever fund that type of thing. We've talked about, you know, maybe abandoning that section of road. I'm wondering, is that how that's?
That's really not feasible to abandon that road. Danbury can't do it on their own. It is Board of Supervisors jurisdiction, even though they're replacing, we're giving you back 80% of the money that's coming in. What the board has done with most of our small communities is that they have arranged for a long-term loan process. For instance, with Salix, we're repaving the main street through the center of town in conjunction with the replacement of the interchange at exit 134 on the interstate. Salix's share of that project will be paid back to the county over 10 years. We did something similar with Smithland, where we extended their payment replacement time on that too, and the board has done all of those agreements at no interest. Correctionville has, I think, paid off their project from, I think that was 2008, when we paved the farm to market extension into town. And the board has had very good terms to help out the cities with that, you know, recognizing that there's not a lot of money there. Our job with this is typically we're paying 50% of the center line 22 feet. Everything outside of that is paid for by the city. So your parking areas, your curb and gutter, any sidewalks that need to be brought up to ADA standards, all of that is paid for by the city. We also work with Bronson on a bridge replacement, where that bridge was eligible for city bridge funds. So essentially on that project, they brought almost 80% of the dollars to the table, and the county then paid them the match and handled all the engineering. So depending on what needs to be done, there's different ways we can look at to partner and fund those type of projects.
Didn't you tell us we could abandon
Well, I thought the county could annex that. I mean, there's part of that road.
Yeah, you could de-annex part of the city, and then it would come back to the county. You're out there an awfully long way.
Going that way, yeah, where it's really nothing of sit, you know.
Yeah, and I think there's a process whereby you can de-annex portions, but I don't know quite how that works. I know that we're still dealing with the Sioux City de-annexation. If you know that area that's behind where they're building that new Christian Academy behind Menards, that was de-annexed by the city of Sioux City in the 1920s. And that's now, you know, that's county jurisdiction. I think that's the last time it happened within the county. But that is a possibility. And that would help if you got to where the city limits was, even if you came down the center line of the road where you only had half of that culvert. Last time we looked at that culvert, it was in adequate condition. It doesn't meet current design standards, but it isn't by any means ready to fall apart. We looked at that when we did the other project.
Okay, so if we had to resurface the road from where you quit and come through Danbury and go down D54, all the sidewalks would have to be handicap accessible, or whatever you said. The city would have to pay for all that, or?
Yes, if we were to use federal aid money on it, the city would have to pay for all of that.
Even if there's no sidewalk there now?
If there's no sidewalk there now, you're not obligated to put one in. You're only required to bring up to standard what's already here. So within Danbury, for instance, or not Danbury, but within Salix, for instance, we had a good deal of sidewalks were going straight through the downtown area. Now, main parts of the sidewalks, since they were wide enough, we didn't have to replace. It was just the curb transitions at each of the intersections where we had to bring the ramps up to date. But the majority of the sidewalk did meet current standards. Now, when I looked at this with your former city clerk, you've got a lot of areas here where the sidewalks aren't wide enough. And in that case, since you have one present, if we were to bring federal aid to the project, which is what we did when we did the overlay out here, that was a federal aid project. Had we brought that all the way into town, then Danbury would have been assuming all of those side street. It's one of the reasons we stopped where we did at the city limits. I felt it would be better if we did the portion in town as a local or farm to market only funded project, so that some of those, I mean, if the city wants to make those changes, we're happy to do them in the course of the plans. And when we're ready to take a look at the in-town portions, we'll be happy to discuss those project options with you, just like we've done with Salix. But there is a possibility of expense for the city when you do get involved with federal aid.
You do have the option to charge that back to the landowner.
It depends on how each of the cities is set up. There is a process whereby you can, that you can assess improvements against the landowner, yes. I haven't done that personally, but I know that Salix is going to put some of that, and he's one of the landowners, so he knows firsthand how that can be done, what it will cost.
Say, Allison? Nothing?
Earlier you talked about tax relief.
Yes.
Is that coming through local option tax, or where's that tax relief coming from?
We passed a resolution that up to 50% of that new money generated by that new industry would go towards tax relief. Now, that's not a binding thing.
But it's ways down the road.
Way down the road, 5 to 7 years. But we did that just to make sure that somebody at least thought about it in the next 5 to 7 years. I wish I was going to be around when all that money was coming in. I think I'll be in the nursing home by that time. It'll really start rolling in 10 or 15 years.
So we got to get the younger generation getting ready for this.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Anyone else?
I told you there would be a war.
We can talk about the nuns.
You don't want to hear about that.
I don't. Were you not, didn't you behave on the road or what?
They had a saying that what happens with the nuns stays with the nuns or something like that. Something like that.
Yes, sir.
Just a comment, I had a business associate come through town last spring. He got a place at Spirit Lake, Carroll, Vegas, and Florida. He drove a bunch of little towns coming in through this way. Also had a funeral this summer, a guy from Minneapolis came down. And both of them said they're really impressed how clean the town was, how they felt safe. There's no lots full of weeds, cars with goods up, dogs and chains all over. So I think Greg does a swell job keeping this thing up. Get these two outside visitors coming in and impressed. They both said they could live here. So just a comment.
Good one. I've had the experience of getting into the Danbury Review office. Wow. I don't know how she does that. It's a work of art. Yeah.
She does a great job. And Mike, her husband.
And the guy in Sergeant Bluff says it's probably one of the largest rural newspapers in the area.
I'd say probably is.
He's got 300 in Sergeant Bluff. They got 700. So that's good.
I want to address something.
Yes, ma'am.
Is Main Street a county road or is it the city?
Main Street's not a county road. The county road is the one that's a straight extension of County Route L36. And then we have B54 where it intersects L36, but we don't come over Main Street.
I was just gonna have an issue, and that's to me with the city council, and, Main Street seems to be a runway sometimes. And, now that I have 2 grandchildren on Main Street, and those other little kids, I would really like to see something put up, I don't know, you can't put another stop sign there, but would it be feasible to put up, slow down, children at play, or something on that order?
What we get, Mark, is people coming in from D-54 from Woodland. And 90% of the farmers now got bigger equipment, more trucks, more semis. Instead of going down over D-54 to where it junctions and comes down past the convenience store down on the east side of town, they come down Main Street with semis, because they can make the turns easier and they can, it's more accessible, wider for them. They can make the turn off D-54 on the north end of Main Street a lot easier than they can make the turn up there on wherever the two blacktops come together on the northeast corner of town. So we get a lot more traffic downtown, which is hard as hell on our street. But I don't see any way to change it. You get combines and, you get a lot of semis, because they all got semis.
We'd have to take half a Jan's lawn to make that corner bigger.
They got it ruined anyway.
Well, the gravel trucks, when they stockpile, they just ruin that. They go around that way, they tried it, they just ruined the intersection. Well, when they were doing the stockpile for that white top out here, they just ruined that intersection.
The one at Main or the one at D-54?
The one at D-54.
You know, when we do come in and take a look at that in-town portion, that intersection would be a good one to look at for rolling out that radius, which would mean taking part of your yard. But, at that point in time, it would be the opportune time to do it.
If you did that, you'd break a lot of the traffic up coming down Main Street.
Anyone else?
They got a little bridge up there by my place. I wonder if you looked at that lately. Is it structurally on the northeast corner of town on the gravel road? On the city limits road?
I haven't been out there personally, but I'll check and see what our bridge inspector found when he was last there.
What about that gutter there by the convenience store, and everybody, trucks keep driving over the break? Is that the county's or the city?
Yeah, that's, I don't know. Where we have problems with them making the swing and busting the curb of the.
That's outside the center 22, so that would be the city's.
I don't know, it's right on.
It's on L-37.
Right, I know. We have the center 22 feet. The area between the curves is the city's.
This is the
I
curb.
don't think it's that wide.
This is
So we'd have to look at it then.
This is the curb, right where it crosses 175.
I understand that. Typically in the towns, we don't have the curb and gutter, so we have 11 feet either side of center line. So that doesn't.
You guys got more damn ways to get out of spending.
Well, we abide by the same rules the DOT does on it.
They got safe. They got a lot of ways to get out of it too.
Yeah.
I think it's just 10.5 feet.
We take care of that. There you go.
They'd like to de-annex that portion of the UR.
Yeah, it sounds like.
Okay, we got another road that goes up the east side of town. That side is the county's, and that's breaking away.
Okay.
That all count.
Wasn't from the center line of that blacktop road, the county?
The east half is.
The east half's ours, the west half's yours.
The east half is sagging pretty bad right there when the street comes together. I don't know. I think the county guys have, over the years, thrown a little concrete in there and trying to keep it from.
I think they've used the AMC machine on it before too. That's our portable patcher.
It needs to be looked at. It's getting worse.
Okay, here we go. Going once.
Nobody else had any problems with the roads?
Going twice. We want to do introductions. We start down on the end, please. Tom says you better introduce. I thought everybody knew who we were.
Jackie Smith,
Larry Clausen.
Jeremy Taylor.
Matthew Ong.
Mark Munson. Okay?
Just before we adjourn here, I wanted to thank Diane and Jean and Peg Bauer. I think Linda brought some. We got bars, coffee, water. Anybody wants anything?
And you ain't getting no doggy bag, but, or you can't take any home.
Already got a good load for Shrinks over there.
We have noticed in doing these, when a mayor gets elected, his wife gets a position as well. All right.
Well, we'd like to thank you all for coming.
Yes.
Any more questions? They're here. Now's the time.
I would suggest,
What are you gonna do with the old jail? I asked the guys down before us, poor farmer he's called.
Prairie Hills? I don't know that we know quite yet. It's costing more money to keep it open than it's probably worth. And there's some things out there that need to be fixed probably quite soon. We're looking at the possibility of doing some additions within the jail downtown. Don't know if that'll work or not. So we're kind of in the figuring it out stage.
What's the feasibility of building a jail in the county?
Probably 0 to less. Looking at the school bond issues, a couple that have been run, they got clobbered. There's just no will in the people to put out probably 50 to 70 million. I mean, that's a long deal. That's years.
So the other day it was announced that the Ag Expo down where Saukwood, the county's going to put in $2 million into that.
Oh, no. We've not talked about it, actually. That's what the group thinks we should put in.
I heard that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they could have wrote on the sentence and said Danbury will put in $1 million too.
I was just kind of wondering where that money was.
We've not talked about it. I think it's a good project. It's been around for 10 years. I think it would be useful for the rural folks. They're talking about horse shows and cattle shows, pig shows, some classes from WIP being involved in there. For some odd reason, there's a 40-room hotel they want to put up. I haven't figured that one out, but I think it's a good idea. It would look good coming into town. Yeah. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of excitement in this side of the table. I know $2 million won't float. And I've not talked to anybody about it.
Is this part of the thing that they had going in Mobile? Is that how this all got?
Is there a question center?
Yes. It is a rather big deal. If they can get those shows that come through, the equestrian shows, those folks come in $1 million rigs with trainers and groomers and all of that kind of thing. And it's, I think, a very exciting thing. There's one in Lincoln, one in Cedar Rapids. There's one connected to a casino in Las Vegas. I guess that one is just busy all the time, huge. So they're all over. North Dakota has one, I believe, Colorado. And it's a circuit, kind of like rodeos. They just go around arena to arena. We're going to have that discussion, but yikes. It's going to be a tough one, yeah.
Omaha's losing early.
Pardon?
I think Omaha's losing early.
Are they?
You're starting to go to Oklahoma City.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. I got to eat all this stuff up now.
Thank you.
Thank you.